Nowadays, whenever we hear about any advice being given to young people, there's this echo chamber of the same advice that you have time and your 20s are basically like an experimental stage. You do not need to commit to anything. Even 30s, they are like just, an experimental stage. You do not need to commit to anything. Like 40s, maybe that's the time you actually start getting serious. But I think that notion is very, very false because most of our decisive decisions that we can take in our life, they are already taken by the time we turn 35. There was the study where they examined how much of important life decisions are taken before the age of 35, and the percentage was 85%. So by the time you're 35, almost all of your life is already defined and shaped in a way. So, what can we do to use the time we have now to drive us into a better future? A future that we would actually like to have for ourselves. First of all, first lesson I think every young person should learn is that commitment is not boring, it is necessary for work and life. Without commitment, we become depressed. Without structure, we lose ambition and drive. However, I'm not discouraging people from exploring what they like, exploring things um, outside of their expertise, exploring things that they have never tried. That goes for every single thing. Especially in careers, you should explore what you like. If you are in college, you should take classes you never thought about taking. If you are a job professional, you should apply for jobs that you never thought you could take. Obviously, you cannot apply for a full time job to be a videographer when you are a coder, but you can take small gigs or start recording videos. Nowadays, you can start anything. The barrier to entry is very low, so starting new things has never become um, more easier as it is now. So, why is exploration necessary? And why is like seriousness in your job, which basically means sticking with one thing, necessary? Without exploration and only seriousness in your job, so if you are going to your job, returning home, and that's all you do all day, then your life becomes very boring and mundane. It becomes monotonous. So if you have only exploration and no seriousness, it's life stops being fun. We have this thing called hedonic adaptation. Whenever like if life gets easier and easier, we do not get the same level of pleasure as we would when we transition from life being hard to life being easier. So we should always try to um, do the hard things in our lives. I'm not saying life should be a miserable experience, but doing hard things has a lot of merit. So, what's the perfect combination in life? We should have seriousness, something we commit to. It could be the college you are studying at, the degree you are pursuing, it could be the job you are doing. You should seriously commit to that and pour a lot of your energy into it. And you should also explore new things. And this combination is what we call magic. This makes you feel interested, this makes you feel happy, and this gives you all the structure you need in life. Now, the second lesson I have learned is that the strength of weak ties is very strong. Nowadays, we tend to isolate ourselves from the outside world and we basically talk to the same four or five friends we have. This activity is highly detrimental because we need to talk to people we do not know or people we barely know, and only there we can find new opportunities and new people to meet, and all of this stuff we already know all the stuff that our friends know. We already know all the people our friends know. So we need to explore more. We need to meet more people, and we need to learn new things from these new people. So do not do not isolate yourselves from other people. You need to talk more whenever you go to a coffee shop. If you see somebody wearing a nice watch, you can start a conversation there. If you have a friend who knows a friend that is doing something you are interested in, then you can reach out. You should not hesitate just because you do not know the person that well. You can get job referrals, you can get internship opportunities at big companies with these weak ties. Now, next lesson, the final lesson from this book is that your 20s are not going to be the best years of your life. We have this notion that being in our 20s means we are carefree, we do not have to think about anything, we do not have to figure out anything. I think that's how I started the video, and I was trying to contradict that statement. I think that during your 20s, you have to fix a lot of stuff. You need to be in a good place in your career and finalize which path you are going into. You need to have a stable relationship with your romantic partner. You need to have a good and stable friend group. All of these things need to be determined within your 20s. I mean, there is always chance that you can do it later on, but some things cannot just be sifted for your 40s and 50s. Some things need to be done in your 20s, such as if you plan on having a child, both for women and men, your fertility rate drops significantly after your 20s, and more complication arrives when you're trying to have a baby. Other things is that if you aren't in a good place in your career in your 20s, then you will be affected by this exponential curve of career growth. Basically, this is the place where you are in your 20s. It does not seem like much, you start from here and you only reached here. This growth does not seem like much, but within 10 years in your 30s, you jump significantly higher in your career. Look at this difference. So this is the difference you could have if you start late, and especially in your 40s, you could reach very high heights. Even the graph we drew was not enough. So look how big of a difference it makes starting 10 years later. So let's say if you were to start your career in your let's in your 30s, that would mean you would have a career something like this. So this is your 20s. This is the same place you were at your formative years, and then you start at your 30s and you reach here, and then the climb is very steep now, of course, but you could have reached way higher if you had started in your 20s. Look, you could have reached to this state if you had started in your 20s versus when you start in your 30s, you only reach here. So not only 10 years of your life are wasted, you also waste way more, because career growth is not linear, it's exponential. The more people you know, the more opportunities you get, the better the opportunities, the more portfolio you have, the more experience you have. So that's why the 20s are very important part of your life, and they are probably not going to be the best years of your life. You will have to figure out a lot of things, you'll have to decide, but your 20s are going to be the most formative years of your life. And if you spend your 20s wisely, I think you will have so much structure going into your 30s and 40s, and hopefully those years will be the best years of your lives. Obviously they will if you use your 20s wisely. Plus, if you were to waste your 20s, one thing is for sure, which is that you will be miserable in your 30s and 40s.